利比亚一位女高官当着中国人的面摆出一副道德审判的姿态放话，中国人来非洲就不要带着目的，整个就是一副感恩缺失的傲慢。他们长期依赖中国的资金和项目，却站在道德高地上指责援助者，说我们应该是无条件的给援助，别谈回报，别求共赢。来一起看一下普通中国人的付出吧。这位网友说，我老公是援建非洲肯尼亚铁路的一名建设者。还有这位说，我的哥哥在非洲做援建工作已经第10个年头了，父母盼望着他可以早日回国。合着这位非洲女高管对着我们中国人的付出就该是天经地义的慈善，中国就应该无条件出钱出力，无偿给你做基建。他也是让我们见识到了这个世界真有人认为白嫖就是理所应当的。他的这一番话让高志凯教授听了可忍不了，他代表了无数默默付出却被选择性遗忘的中国人发言，把这笔良心账算清楚，直接摊牌，中国不欠任何人。面对这种得了便宜还卖乖的离谱言论，高教授没有回避，没有委婉，而是直击要害，用事实和历史给对方上了一堂清醒课。首先被戳破的就是中国没来之前非洲岁月静好的虚假幻觉。高教授的一句话点破了现实。在中国全面参与非洲事务之前，在多次国际会议中，连你们自己都说非洲是被遗忘的大陆。在非洲最困难、最孤立无援的时候，谁在雪中送炭，谁又在袖手旁观呢？中国走进非洲，从来没想过去掠夺，而是为了共赢。高志凯教授当场就列出了一串事实，让这些白眼狼所有的指责都显得苍白无力。肯尼亚的蒙内铁路让原本需要10几个小时的路程缩短到了4个小时，不仅打通了当地的经济动脉，还创造了数万个就业岗位，让无数的非洲家庭有了收入的来源。还有埃塞俄比亚吉布提铁路，被非洲人自己称为这不是路，这是命。还有坦桑尼亚的港口升级改造，尼日利亚的机场扩建，赞比亚安哥拉的航空枢纽，甚至连非盟总部大楼也是中国出钱、中国设计、中国建造的。多少个非洲国家的总统府、议会大楼、财政部、施工方清一色都是中国企业建造，这些都是实打实的项目。如果中国不帮他们，又有哪个国家会愿意出来帮他们呢？可就是这样掏心掏肺的帮助，却被一些人当成了理所当然。更离谱的是，他们当中还有人说是上帝派中国来援助的，不是来赚钱的。这句话听着真是让人发笑，真是充满了恶意的道德绑架。合着中国人就应该无私奉献，不计成本，不计回报吗？一旦谈商业合作，谈投资回报，那就是带着目的，就是不高尚。这是什么强盗逻辑啊？一个企业去非洲投资，要承担巨大的风险，要投入大量的资金和技术，工人要远离家乡，在陌生的环境里辛苦工作，凭什么不能拿应有的报酬呢？面对这样的无理指责，来听一听高志凯教授在现场是如何回应的吧。
One of the important things we've done in terms of our foreign policy thrust has been economic diplomacy, where diplomacy is not just about the past of public diplomacy and political discourse and so forth, but really about how we transform our countries. And energy is critical. You cannot have prosperity, shared prosperity, and all the ideals that we all ascribe to in terms of sustainable development goals. Energy is at the heart of it. You cannot have jobs created through the private sector if investors do not have the energy they need to power the various industries they want. And I think at the end of the day, when you're talking about China and the green revolution in China and the energy revolution in China, and we're talking about value addition at home and critical minerals and the use of critical minerals in Africa and so forth, that's where the partnership comes in. Don't come to Africa with the intent to take, but come to Africa with the intent to partner and to spread. Energy solutions can be made at home. We have the critical minerals that are required. And how do we make sure that what's been learned in China and other BRICS countries in relation to green solutions are actually then used at home in Africa to then formulate new solutions that are green, so that would not increase the burden, the climate burden for Africa, but will also have us as creating jobs and reducing the pressures on us. So homegrown solutions that we take from countries like the BRICS countries like China, and we use those solutions at home to create jobs, but use those solutions at home to actually then be part of the solution. And I think when you see us as victims, when you see African countries as victims, it's a negative start already, because we're not victims. We've been victimized by certain actions that have been taken, but we're not victims. We hold the key to the future, and understand that we hold the key with our minerals, with our natural resources, but also with our experiences and our intelligence and our capabilities. If you see us as partners, coming to the table with us as partners, we can design those solutions together. And AI, can I just touch on AI for a minute? And this is where the concern some of us have is around how AI can be used to further try to victimize Africa because of us not being at the same level in terms of technology. And if people are really interested, if powers are really interested in us having a just world, a just and peaceful world, we'll come to the table from the perspective of the fact that you have a huge youth bulge, huge creativity in Africa. And this is where, in terms of the solutions around AI and how we use AI constructively, can be engaged. But conflicts come about because of an imbalance in terms of natural resources and in terms of how those natural resources are used to transform lives. And so energy is one of them. Energy is critical, but we can partner in a way where we build on the demographic dividend and use that to really strengthen Africa's position, getting power across Africa. And I don't want to come across as if I'm here to just praise my president, but I'm so proud to be part of a leadership where within just 2 years, we've seen a huge spread of access to energy. But in order for us to have every household in Liberia, for example, with energy, it's not just about having it, it's about the cost of energy. Yeah. The cost of energy. And how do we have energy solutions that are affordable for the poorest of the poor? Because it's not about just the solution itself, but the solution being practical for those who have the most need. And those with the most need are not the ones that have the voice and agency to be able to negotiate. So I think the role of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the various countries in the global majority, and I like that, thank you for that. The role for the global majority is how this conference, this Doha Forum this year, the first 2 words are diplomacy and dialogue. How do we make sure diplomacy and dialogue take us to the end result, which is about having a more just and peaceful world, and making sure our resources are not used to further victimize, but are used to actually build constructively.
And I think one of the big challenges that we have faced is about the economies of scale in terms of energy affordability as well on the continent. And I think there needs to be real partnership there between industry, private sector, and the state in order to be able to make it more affordable. I think. Let me come to you, Victor. Maybe two questions, and then let's see if we get an opportunity to ask to move to the questions from the floor. I mean, China is playing a really important role in technology development that helps to combat climate change, climate action. A lot of the BRICS statements, and now we saw it also in the G20 statement last week or 10 days ago, talk about the importance of technology neutral interventions to help deal with climate action. What are the initiatives that China specifically might be taking, also in the area of intellectual property rights, given that is also a hot issue for global South countries, in terms of working together with African countries on helping both to increase energy access, but at the same time to do it in a smart and efficient way?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I think Her Excellency Sarah mentioned the national energy policy. I'm the chairman of China Energy Security Institute. We constantly look at the interaction between energy as widely defined and security as widely defined. Allow me to mention, for any country, without your own tailor-made national energy security strategy, your economy is doomed. Really, without energy and without a strategy, you cannot really run your economy. In that sense, I'm very much concerned about Germany in Europe. I'm very much concerned about Britain because they are really failing in lining up their energy security strategy. Now, for Africa, before I talk about Africa, let's talk about this part of the world. In addition to oil and gas, do you know which other source of energy they are enjoying the abundance in? Solar, very obviously. So my advice to all countries in this part of the world is that pool all your resources and develop solar energy as much as you can, so that you do not need to use that much of crude oil or natural gas to generate electricity. But do you know there is a huge kind of negative competition by the Americans, by the Europeans? They accuse China of producing solar equipment and solar panels. Why should we fail in cooperation between the Chinese and the Americans and the Europeans to make sure that people and the countries in the Middle East can really put their very extraordinary solar resources to the best use, so that they can really achieve sustainability of development without having to use their own resources like crude oil and natural gas? So that's one of the possibilities. Now, the other thing for Africa, allow me to mention one thing. I listened very carefully this morning to some of the remarks made. I listened very carefully. But allow me to mention one point. Before China's full engagement with Africa, Africa was more or less a forgotten continent. Part of the reason was very obvious. Many European countries and the United States had huge skeletons in their closet in dealing with the Africans. Hundreds of years of colonial rule, slavery in the United States, for example, and even for our distinguished excellency and the country she comes from, Liberia. Liberia was founded by the deported slaves from the United States, after the American government realized that they no longer needed that many slaves working in the cotton fields and other fields. So they do not want to keep the African slaves as people in the United States. They deported them. They deported them to Liberia. That's the origin of Liberia. So I hope you will all understand China does not have any skeleton in our closet in dealing with Africa. We deal with everyone in Africa as brothers and sisters. And if you ask which country built a road or highways or airports or government buildings in Africa, none of the European countries have done. Americans have never done that. It's China. I'm not fabricating this. I'm really telling you the real hard truth, that China has been fully engaged with Africa. Going forward, China wants to make sure that every of the 54 countries in Africa, for 1.4 billion, if not 1.5 billion Africans, and going forward by the end of this century, you are expecting doubling of the African population. They will all be fully engaged in the AI revolution. Using the American way of AI? No. You do not have the money. You do not have the talents to do that.
Can I ask you to summing up?
Yeah, I will sum up. You need to really do this in an open source manner to fully engage in this AI revolution.
为什么总会出现这种感恩缺失的情况？高志凯教授一语道破关键，就是当你太好说话时，当你讲情义，当你不强调成本，对方就会开始要求更多，指责更多，甚至反过来审判你。他们显然已经忘了尊重是相互的，合作是双向的。你帮他建好了铁路，他不会感谢你让他们的生活更加便捷；你帮他建好了医院，他也不会感谢你让他们能看上病；你帮他解决了就业，他也不会感谢你让他们能够养家糊口，反而会对着你挑三拣四，说你是带着目的，说你是掠夺资源。这种忘恩负义的行为不仅寒了中国人的心，更是他们在砸自己的饭碗。